This is part of the AI Essentials for Nonprofit series, and today we're going to be talking about what everybody seems to be wanting to talk about, which is grant writing. It is kind of the number one requested use cases for nonprofits, and the reason for that is because it's oftentimes necessary for existence. We have multiple revenue streams, we have big donors, we have little donors, but oftentimes grants are supporting a lot of the programs, and everything just got a lot scarier when it comes to grants as well. So we'll talk a little bit about how the grant landscape is changing a little bit. As always, if I'm not sharing correctly, Lindsay, you're usually good at catching me. If I don't look like I'm sharing correctly, just ping me and I'll fix it. So why are grants perfect for nonprofits, and why are they so frustrating? So they're tedious, oftentimes, and they're also really boring, and it takes a lot of time and focused effort to write a good grant narrative. And so that's great if you have a full-time grant writer that is only focused on that. But if you're executive director / program director / grant writer, then trying to find 6 hours in a day of uninterrupted focus time is basically impossible. So if this sounds like you, and you're kind of always trying to fit in the grant writing part, then when does the grant often get written? What I hear from folks that are writing grants is that it's on your nights and weekends, because you need that quiet focus time to actually write the grant, and that just doesn't happen during the workday. And so if you actually want to get it done, it takes nights and weekends, which means you're spending more time away from your family, and you're putting all of your heart and energy into these grants. I'm putting so much effort, and then you just get rejected. And so it can be a really big kind of emotional response to and they're so binary. You either get it or you don't get it. And it's really impacts your organization, what you're able to do. And so you kind of either need to just be more resilient. Let me let folks in. Sorry, 1 second. Where are you? I guess I'm in the waiting room. Apologies. There we go. I have too many screens open. Okay, so you get this rejection and you have a big emotional response, and maybe you're just all right, grants aren't for me, or you're just gonna have to double down and keep writing grants. And so AI is really perfect for grant writing because you can write a grant with less effort, less time, and ultimately have better quality grant with this process. And what just means that ultimately you have more opportunities, to more at-bats if you're a sports person. And there's a double-edged sword to this that I'll talk about. And so you have more opportunities, and you have less kind of big emotional energy of I've invested all these hours into this. We've had so many meetings around this that there's a little bit less heartache if you don't get that grant. So you get more opportunities and less kind of emotional pain if you don't get that grant. And something about AI, if you started to use it more and more and more, something that I've realized is that essentially the more boring the application that you're using AI, the better AI is using at that application. So what are some boring use cases that are great for AI? Cleaning up data. If you have lots of data, you can do cleaning data, writing grant reporting on grants, internal policies. I need a new updated, work from home policy. I need a new updated, drug-free workplace policy. Boring stuff, right? Nothing that's gonna really get people excited. Operating procedures are perfect for AI. I have an operating procedure assistant, and basically what I'll do when I'm working with somebody and creating an operating procedure is it's all in their head. They know what they need to be doing, and then I just have them talk it out loud. First Nancy goes and gets these forms, and then Nancy gives them over to this person, and this person sorts them in this way, and they just talk it out loud. And then you can just take that transcript of them talking about that operating procedure, not an operating procedure, but just what they do, and then turn that into an operating procedure in 5 minutes. So that way when you onboard somebody new, or you can look at that procedure and be where are there opportunities for improvement? Where are there opportunities to use AI in these steps, right? thinking a lot of the transition that we're making is figuring out like where do we say yes to AI in our lives, in our work, and where do we set boundaries? Where do we say, I don't want AI? Meeting minutes are perfect for AI, budget overviews, like all these like boring use cases is often where I suggest you start, because we spend a lot of time doing this work that we don't want, which is getting in the way of the work we really love, which is what? Interacting with people, building relationships, building relationships with the people that we serve. That's what people want to be doing. And so what are some creative use cases? Impact storytelling, that's actually great for AI. You just like tell your story out loud and it writes a really nice little like impact story. Donor outreach, this is one that really makes me nervous. Anything that's like donor, customer, constituent facing, you just need to be really careful because you don't want to break down that trust you have. If you have a donor and you have a relationship with that donor and you just send them some like AI garbage and they feel like, oh, this person doesn't know me, doesn't care about me, they're just like sending me spam, or like, you just need to be really careful when you're doing anything AI related that's externally facing. Visual branding, yeah, you can use AI for images, but if you've tried that before, it's a fun exercise, but it's really hard to get like what you actually want that matches your brand. And so it's great for internal slides and making a point, but I'm really careful and nervous about using AI for like visual branding stuff. Fundraising events, marketing, anything that's like creative copywriting or fundraising stuff, I like to be a lot more careful with the use of AI. But all this boring stuff, like all day, every day. When you do more creative activities, we need to think about this concept called human in the loop, where humans are checking the outputs, right? You would never want to just send a ChatGPT generated email to your like most valuable donor without checking it. That's just insane. So the more sensitive it is, if I'm sending out like a national press release, I'm going to put a lot of attention into getting that perfect. If I have a meeting with my coworker in 10 minutes and I'm making an agenda, there's a lot lower threshold for the importance of checking that output before sending it off. So kind of the amount of checking is directly correlated to kind of the sensitivity of the activity. So before we actually talk about how to do AI and grant writing, I want to just kind of talk a little bit about what I think is coming in the grant writing, grant reviewing world. And I think that there is an AI arms race in the grant writing and foundation world. So what's going to happen, and this is totally my prediction, one thing I advocate for is nobody knows exactly how AI is going to unfold in our society, which also means I don't know, right? So just take everything I say with a grain of salt. We're going to be navigating this world together. And so you can use AI to write grants, and I think it's totally reasonable that you can spend about 50% less time and potentially get a better quality grant when you're using AI to write a grant. And I only say 50% because anything more, like people are like, no way. But like, I really think it's probably closer to like 70, 80% faster. But we'll just say 50% for like a nice, easy number. But what's going to happen is you're going to be able to submit way more grants, which you think is like fantastic, right? More at bats. The problem is everyone else is going to be able to do that too. And some folks are not going to know how to use AI very well, and some folks are going to have a grant writer that like knows what a good grant looks like. And so foundations are going to potentially be inundated with grants and grant requests, and potentially with like AI garbage grants. If you've tried to use AI for writing grants, you've noticed that sometimes you get sentences that says that sentence says something important. It's just like a kind of redundant sentence. It's like, what does that sentence say? It doesn't actually say anything. And so just using AI doesn't guarantee good results. And so I have an example of like bad AI grant writing. This is like, I'll just read like the first sentence. Like, Our transformative initiative is designed to create lasting, measurable, and deeply resonant impact, ensuring every community member involved experiences far-reaching benefits in ways that are undeniable by participants and measurable. Like, what does that sentence actually say? Like, it doesn't really actually say anything. Just like a bunch of word fluff. And so this is what can kind of come out of these grants if you're not careful about what you put into it. If you just say, write me a grant, it starts to write like this. If you say, this is the exact kind of details that need to be in this grant that are going to show, kind of combine impact with funding, then you get much better results. So sentences like this, they say nothing. And if you submit 20 pages of this, then these funders are going to get overwhelmed by this, and you'll lose your reputation with that funder, and you won't get funded anyway. And so what's the effect of all this? You can submit way more grants. Everybody else can submit way more grants. Foundations and funders are getting just bombarded with grant requests. And so what I think is going to happen is that eventually the funders are going to have to use AI, right? Kind of similar to like the resume game, right? Where, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I don't know exactly the timeline, like resumes started to get processed by computers and AI to even get to the human. So then the humans had to write the resume to get past the algorithms to get to the humans. So it was like this weird loop that's happening. I think the same thing is going to potentially happen with grants and grant review. And so there's this arms race happening. Luckily, I think for the grant writers, I think the grant writers have the advantage right now. I'm not hearing that a lot of foundations are embracing this technology yet. They haven't seen this surge yet. And so if you're adopting this now and you're learning these strategies, you may have a window where you can output more and get more opportunities and get more funding before this kind of like arms race ratchets up. And how long would this last? Like, nobody knows, right? So I don't know either, but it is something to kind of watch and see, is this going to happen and at what pace? So another thing I hear a lot, especially from grant writers, is that there's this like fear. In fact, I was just talking about this with my brother last night. Anytime AI is potentially taking away from my skill that I use to make money, people are very resistant to that. They think that, and dismissive. They're like, oh, well, AI can't do what I can do. But then you talk about some other use cases and they're like, oh, well, that seems like great, but not what I do. What I do is special. And so there's a lot of fear and denial that AI is going to affect a lot of different industries, especially industries that rely on writing words, since that's what AI is really adept at. And so there's a lot of fear from the grant writers about, will AI make grant writers obsolete? And the more and more I use this technology, the more I realize like that's not true. That's not how, at least on a short to medium time scale. Once AIs are arguably smarter than humans, then we have this whole other concept of like the cost of knowledge goes to zero, where you can just interact with some AI for super cheap and get really high quality knowledge. So like we'll maybe replace lawyers with AI. Like lawyers are a perfect example of like they have very specialized keepers of the knowledge and you need them to access the knowledge. But what if that wasn't true? What would that do for lots of different industries that rely on specialized knowledge as your kind of like your special sauce? So what I'm realizing the more and more I use it is AI must be used by people with an actual skill. You have to be good at grant writing to use AI to write a good grant. Can you write a bad grant or a medium grant with AI? Absolutely. But the problem is, if you don't have the skill to know what a good grant looks like, then you can run into a situation that I call an AI illusion. And an AI illusion is when you don't have enough domain expertise to know whether or not something that AI makes is good or not good. And so it looks good to me as a layman. So an example of this is I helped some people do some AI for patent writing. And like even though I have a few patents because I was an inventor for a long time, they're not actually just signed all the rights away. So I'm on the patent, and I don't write patents, so I'm more like generating the stuff, and I'm looking at it and be like, well, it looks good to me. It looks very patent-like. And then you show it to a patent lawyer, and they're like, well, this is nonsense. So it looks good to a novice, but if you show that to an expert, then it's terrible, right? So there's two kind of options, right, if you want to use AI for writing grants. The first is that you have a grant writer that already has the skill in writing grants, or you're using AI to help craft the first draft, and then you have a grant writer that's checking and refining, which is way easier and cheaper than just like outsourcing the entire thing. So if you have a grant writer on staff, great. They should be experimenting with this technology and using their skill to write things faster. If you don't, then you can start the process and get as far as you can, and then bring in an expert to help guide you on kind of the finishing touches. Any questions before we see it in action? Make sure where the chat is at. Where are you at, chat? I see participants. So go ahead if you have a question in the chat. Somebody saying looking good, great. Okay, so let's see it in action. In these sessions, I like to have a little bit of theory about kind of the big cultural shifts that are coming, what I'm excited about, what I'm nervous about, and then also talking, like really just demonstrating, like what does it look like in practice? What's the practical and actionable ways that you can start using this technology? So the goals today are to learn how to use AI to find grants, which is its own problem, how to use AI to search within these large grant documents, especially, well, I mean, federal grants are its own special story right now, but sometimes you have 100-page NOFOs. Just reading that it's a big task. Using AI to determine eligibility, actually using AI to write the grant narratives, and then kind of the most advanced way is using AI, using AI to condense language that is too fluffy. How do you make it like tighter, more impactful? And then how do you use AI to improve a grant? So if you have a grant narrative or grant section, and then you compare it to the rubric and use AI to be like, hey, of these rubric points, like how would it score and how would I improve it? And did I talk about everything in the rubric, and showing a little bit of that as well. So we'll start with finding grant opportunities. There's two ways, and one I just found out about yesterday from someone, and I'm going to demonstrate that as well. So I'm going to show two different ways to use AI to write grants. The first is deep research. Deep research is a new feature within ChatGPT, and it's super, super, super powerful, kind of wildly powerful, and we can use it to find grant opportunities. So I'm in ChatGPT, and I have this button for deep research. And if you are a $20 a month version, which I highly recommend, especially just for this feature alone, then you get 10 of these per month. If you are, if you have the $200 version, which is what I currently pay for, I think I'm only going to do it for 1 month, then you get like 150 of these a month. You can see that I still have like 95 left, 94. So I've been just hammering this because this feature is so powerful. And so when I click this button, instead at the top it says, what can I help with? It says, what are you researching? And since I always like to do real stuff on these research, I'm actually going to selfishly look for grant opportunities for AI training in Central Ohio for consultants for nonprofits, right? See if I can find some opportunities for myself. So I appreciate you letting me be just a little selfish during this. So I'm going to talk to it like I normally do, which I think is the new way that we're going to interact with computers, is with our voice. So you'll see me do that. So I need to find grant opportunities for AI training or technical training for nonprofits in the Central Ohio region. I am a tech consultant helping nonprofits to leverage AI to amplify their positive impact and improve operational efficiency. And I'm looking for grant opportunities, foundations, or just anything where people are looking for that type of service that I can reach out to or apply to. So I tell it what I want, and then with deep research, it will ask me some additional questions. Oh, this doesn't look quite right. I'm going to try it again. Usually it's a little bit different format. Deep research. Okay, this looks more correct. And so it asks me some questions before it does the research, and I'm just going to answer the questions kind of off the top of my head. And so you can use this to find grant opportunities. You can also do this for like all sorts of just anything that you want to research. Some recent ones I've done recently are finding other wellness programs. Let's in this person. Finding, like I have a client that's running a women's wellness program, and so we use deep research to look for all the other just like wellness programs in the area, so we can just make connections with other people that are offering the same services. That would be just like a day of Googling, and we just did the whole thing in 20 minutes or so. So I'm going to answer these questions and we'll see what it comes up with. For specific focus, no, we're not looking specifically for AI adoption. It can be any sort of general technical training or capacity building. This is another keyword that we want to search for. For fund types of fundings, it can be for nonprofits for training or to fund consultants. Either one is fine. Grant size, we want a minimum of $5,000 and a maximum of $50,000. Preferred funders are Central Ohio, and it could be anywhere in Ohio, but we want to look specifically in Ohio. We're looking for current open opportunities and future opportunities that aren't yet open. And since I don't have a 501c3 status, we want to look for grants that are open to consultants and for nonprofits, which could be applied to my services. So what happens next? So now what it's going to do is it's going to go search the web for like 20 minutes or so. So that's why I like to run these at the beginning. And it will create like an analyst report that's something like 20 pages long. So let me just pull up an example of a deep research project. So these are all the deep research projects that I've done. Here are funding opportunities for health centers. And so I'm just going to scroll. This is the condensed version from here to here. So that's the condensed version. And then what it actually outputs starts here, because sometimes these results are like really long. And I'm just going to scroll to the bottom and show kind of the length and the depth of the research that it's outputting. So, and these are fully cited and sourced. So rather than just like random ChatGPT hallucinations, if you don't know what hallucination is, that's just when ChatGPT just makes up random facts. These are cited, so you can actually go and check these sources. So that's one way we can use AI to search for grants. The other is this thing that was just introduced to me yesterday at the Nonprofit Fundraising Summit that I'm attending right now, and some of you are also attending. And this is an AI application specifically for nonprofits. They do grant management and also grant searches, and you get 3 grant searches per day for free. So that'll get you started and see if you can find something. So here I was searching for grants, grant for women's workforce development in Ohio. Let's say capacity building grants for nonprofits in Ohio. Oops. I've used my free search. Oh, come on. I have to get three free searches. Let's see if I can look at the previous search. Okay, so this is the previous search that I just did. Apparently it's giving me one. And it's searching lots of different grant repositories. So you can see Planned Parenthood, GrantWatch, ohio.edu, womensplace.osu.edu. So it's searching from different grant opportunities, and then I can go and immediately go to that grant and look at, is this a good grant for me, right? So So that's one way we can find grants. Let me move. How do I move this? Zoom, you're in the way. Okay, here we go. So that is finding grants. What about searching a long grant document? So let's see if I can pull this up. So I have this NOFO here, and the reason I'm using this one is because I spent a lot of time looking at it. This is one we actually applied for and wrote a $20 million grant for. And so it's 95 pages. So like, what's step one of starting this grant? It's like, am I eligible for it? And do I have to read this? Like, we spent a lot of time looking at this document over and over and over again. So instead of like the old way to find information is I would just go up here and I'd be like, search and search keyword, rubric. How many times does that show up? None. What about emissions? How do you spell emissions? Is that right? What about climate, right? So the old way is like, you just search and it finds it and you're like, okay, is that it? Is that it? Is that it? Is this it? It's like, what? It's showing up 55 times, or it's found on 55 pages. And you just have to like try to find that document. Now what you can do, and we did this and it was very useful, is I'm going to show you two ways. You can see this thing is still searching. I'm going to go back to here and I'm going to prompt ChatGPT. This is the easier way to do it, and then I'll show you the more advanced way second. I'm going to say, I'm going to give you a grant NOFO as a PDF, and your job is to search the PDF for answers to my questions. If I ask a question that is not inside the NOFO, it's important that you do not make it up, and instead you just tell me that it's not in the NOFO. And I want you to cite the page number that it comes from, and if possible, I want you to actually give me the quoted text from the PDF as a reference. Give me a thumbs up emoji if you understand the instructions. So there's my set of instructions. I'm kind of priming it with what I want to do. I'm going to drop this NOFO in here, upload it. Just one caveat, anytime you are uploading documents to ChatGPT, don't upload sensitive or personalized information. So that means medical records, financial data. You can sometimes anonymize stuff first if you really want to do some activities like that, but just need to be extra careful. So now I'm going to ask it some questions. I'm going to say, tell me the exact font requirements for submitting this. So it searches the document. Maybe. We'll see if it works. Come on, ChatGPT. Okay, so it's searching the document and telling me the exact information that I'm wanting. So that was kind of a simple one. Right, that's kind of like just exact like details. But you can also ask it significantly more subtle questions when you are searching this way. So now I can say something that's just a little bit more ambiguous. I want to know the grading rubric for track 1, and I want the second section within the rubric. Right? That would be an impossible question to ask on just the old way with like the control find, right? I'm asking for like the second section inside of a rubric. We'll see if it understands me. So it's reading the document, and we'll see what it comes back with. Let's see if this one gave me the page number. No, it seemed to ignore that instruction. Sometimes when you're using AI, it does kind of ignore you. All right, the second section in track 1, grading rubric, focuses on program management capability and capacity. Here's all the details and the points. It's actually easier to read in this format than if I actually went to the PDF, and it's like kind of just more convoluted and harder to read. So we use this over and over to query against just like, what was that? And where's this information? And how do we, where's this and where's that? We found this to be really useful rather than just going back to this 95-page document and like reading it over and over and searching for this information. So that's searching long documents. We talked about this inside the community group a little bit. This is useful for any boring, huge document that you that you have to search. So if you have like government policies or like grant no-fos, like think about your organization and are you searching tedious, long government documents or internal policy documents often? These can all be loaded into AI, and like basically searching documents just fundamentally changed, right? This is the new way that we're going to be searching documents. What about eligibility, right? So we found this here, right? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this, I'm going to copy it, and this is me just doing a live demonstration here. I don't know anything about this grant. I'm going to give you a grant, and I want you to tell me the eligibility requirements, extract that from the information that I give you, and then I'm going to tell you about a nonprofit that I work with, and you're going to determine if they're a good fit for this grant. So those are my instructions. We'll stick this in here. Okay. Eligibility requirements. Who can apply? Faculty and staff, undergraduate students, graduate students, funding amounts. Where is my Little Helpers, Columbus, Ohio? This is a nonprofit that's dear to my heart because we work together and they do amazing work here. And I'm going to say, here is my nonprofit. Tell me if I am a good fit. So it's going to go and read that page. And it should say no, because they're not staff members, not qualified for this, right? Oftentimes, something to know about using AI is I call AI a say yes machine. What do I mean by that? What is a say yes machine? AI is always trying to do the thing that you're asking it to do. So if I said, in this particular example, tell me why I'm a good fit for this, its response is going to be, you're a great fit for this. Here's why. Because that's what I actually asked for. I told it why. I asked it to tell me why I'm a good fit. If I immediately then asked it, tell me why I'm a bad fit for this, it'll be like, you're a terrible fit for this. Here's why. So it's trying to please you. It's trying to do the task that you ask. So if you want critical feedback that's a little bit more objective, it's oftentimes better to ask for both. Tell me why I'm a good fit and tell me why I'm a bad fit, and then evaluate whether or not I'm a better fit or a worse fit for this opportunity. That you're going to get much more objective results with more information than if you just ask for something good. Someone's saying unbiased feedback does help with the instruction. Also, keep asking until it repeats itself. That's good. Okay, so even just determining if you're a good fit for a grant takes a lot of effort. Oh, I think I wasn't sharing again. Sorry, y'all. I was just showing that it said, no, not a good fit. It determined that this organization is not associated with Ohio University or Ohio State University, so it's not a good fit. It does not qualify. So a way to speed this up is to have it could be your website, it could be like a document that you have that's all about your organization, what you do and who you are and kind of your mission statement and the impact you're making and the people you serve. And you use that over and over, and you basically feed it a grant, feed it your about you, and then check. Feed a grant, feed it the about you, and check. So that way you can just speed up the process of okay, I got to read this whole thing, find the eligibility requirements, read through it carefully, make the assessment myself. It's just a lot faster at kind of combing through all the stuff. All right. Okay, actually writing the grant. This is kind of the real deal. So I have an AI grant writer that I built. Let's see if I can find it here. We'll go to my GPTs. And so this grant writer is what I did to make it. Let's find it here. These are all the custom AI assistants that I have built. So we'll go to grant. We'll just search for grant. Search EPA grant writing assistant, AI for social good. And so what I did to write this is I took lots of good grant narratives and I ran them through an AI text analyzer. And AI text analyzer says things like, you put in some text and it'll say, what's the word choice? What's the sentence structure? What's the reading level? What's the lexicon, score? What types of words are being used? What's the person that's being referenced? And so then I extract that out. And then I give it also a bunch of examples of good grant writing. And with those two pieces of information, an AI analysis of what a good grant is written like, and examples of good, then it's much more likely to write in the style of a good grant, right? Now, does it automatically write good stuff? This is kind of a subtle thing about AI, is AI, the more and more you use it, the more you realize it's actually just regurgitating information back to you. The more you give it and the more specific you give it, you're going to start to notice the things that you give it are reflected back to you just in a different format. It's like a text transformer. It takes input, like my dictation, which is just like blah, 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 me talking, and turns that into structured data. And even just this process of taking unstructured information or bullet points of information and turning those into paragraphs, that's a really useful skill. Or summarizing text. If you have technical information and you want to turn it into, layman's terms, that's a good use of AI. And so you have to use AI to kind of start to see how it's working and start to notice kind of the trends that are happening. So I'm just going to say, tell me how you work. Right, so I help by writing grants by taking details you provide and structuring them into a professional, compelling grant. My writing style, so here's this kind of repeating its style: formal, clear, focused on delivering key information concisely, ensure that the proposal meets funders' expectations by maintaining structured formats. So this is kind of like how it's trained to write. And there's something I don't have a really good example of. I need to update this on showing this exact process, but I want to talk about how I've found to use this and what's new about it. So if I just tell it to write a grant, and I tell a little bit about myself and why I'm a good fit, oftentimes I get back like AI fluff. That's what we started calling it when we were writing grants with this technology. It's just kind of like nothing. It just kind of says nothing. And so what we found is you need to be really specific about the details you actually want to include. And so we tried a different strategy. And what you do is you actually write almost the entire grant, still with the help of AI, but you write it in bullet point form. So like bullet point 1 is like, we're going to make an impact of 20, by reducing, need for services by 28% by providing this, and this. And you write it in a bullet point because we understand bullet points really well. Like we just are like, we like stuff, structured bullet point information. And so you write it in bullet points where you're like, every bullet point is solid. Every bullet point has the information that I want to include in my grant. And then you just use the grant writer to convert from bullet points into paragraph form. Why did we not do it this way the previous, right? Just because it would be so much extra effort, right? It would be like nonsense. If I came to you as a grant writer and I said like, I want you to write the entire grant, but in bullet points, and then later you're going to have a chore of rewriting your own bullet points into a paragraph, they'd be like, that's nonsense. I'm not doing that. But because switching from bullet points to paragraph is trivial, it makes sense to start in this bullet point form where you're making sure all the content is there and it's concise, and then you switch it over to paragraph form really quickly. So I need to create some more demos and showing that, but that's the process that we use to find that it was significantly more effective than just going straight to the trying to write it in paragraph form, because we ended up with a lot of this like AI fluff. So I'm going to put this grant writer in the chat. Where are you, grant writer? So I'm going to put this in the chat. This is free for anyone to use, so you can give it a try and see if it works for you. Let's go here, back to my GPTs. See if I can find it again. I need to get these organized better, actually. Grant writing assistance. I'm going to put this in the chat. This is available for anyone. Where's the chat? I got so many windows open. Okay, everyone in the meeting. There is the grant writing assistant if you want to give it a try. Find a grant using one of these new AI tools, and then maybe try this out. Okay, so some best practices. Work in small sections. You don't want to just write the whole grant in one shot. You want to work in kind of the smallest working section you can. So oftentimes grants are, a series of questions, just work question by question. If it's one of these like big federal grants, which maybe nobody should be applying for right now, you want to just work like in each section. As I said, write in bullet points first. Make sure each bullet point is like impactful, has data, it's clear, and then convert that into paragraphs. I guess I maybe do have an example here. So what's this say? This is, I think, some information from, let's try this. So these are the bullet points, right? It has very specifics. The new bold group has managed over 25 federal, so that's how many grants it's done. Each quarter, including these stakeholders, will review progress on outputs. Meetings will include analysis of air quality data and workforce development. So this is like dense information. I take this, I have a new participant here. I take this, apparently I did prepare. I run it through here and I say, your task, rewrite the following bullet points in paragraph form using your training. Say, I just put context. So here it is, in bullet point form, converted to grant narrative language. The project will utilize collaborative tools and structured evaluation methods to support effective monitoring. A cloud-based platform will facilitate real-time data sharing, communication, and coordination among USA, EPSD, and CCCTC. If this is still too wordy, or you need to get your grant narrative smaller because there's a page limit or there's a character limit in any particular question, you can do a next step, which is copy this and go through a text consolidation. So if you see that there's word fluff and there's all this stuff in there, then you can go through a text consolidator. So if there's lots of filler words and you have sentences that say they say something, which you'll start to notice, you're like, this doesn't say much. Then I created an AI text condenser where the goal is to say the same information just in a tighter format. Just take out some of the filler words, don't remove anything, don't add anything, just say the same thing in a smaller format, reduced maybe by 20% or so. So let's try that. So I have this, right? And maybe this is still kind of like a little word fluffy. I think a new problem that we'll face is that, this is my theory about the future. I'll write my email in bullet points and then use my AI to convert bullet points into paragraphs, and then you'll use your AI to go from paragraphs back into bullet points. I think that's what might be coming. I'm going to say condense this by 15%. We'll paste this in here. So this is what the AI just wrote. And now it's just going to try to write the same thing, but just with less filler, more concise. And so that brings up this really important point of how we use AI. Your job when using AI is to determine if the output is good. Instead of the author, you're the evaluator and the shaper of it, right? You're picking things that are good. And that means you got to know what good looks like. The number of times I say that phrase, know what good looks like, is like hundreds and hundreds, it feels like, because that's the core of using AI, is knowing what good looks like and to be able to get good results. So where are we at? So we did text condensing. Okay, here's the real deal. Using AI to grade and improve a grant. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to take this section of the grant. This is going to be a lot here. We'll see if this works because I don't know what section I pulled this from. This is actually from the grant narrative. So I'm going to go back to the conversation that has the EPA. Where are we at? The one I trained it on the grants. Where are we at? Is this the one that's trained on the grant? No. I think it's this one? Nope. Nope. Oh, this is the grant search is done. You can see how much it generated. These are all the grants. Now, is this good? Same question. Is this useful? Did I do this exercise for just the sake of doing it? Or am I going to be actually... Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, folks. You gotta give me a warning. Okay, here we are. So here's the output of that search I did at the beginning. You can see how long it is. It just keeps scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. I'm looking in here and it's saying Imagine Grant Program, Tech Innovation for Nonprofits, State of Ohio Tech Cred Training Reimbursement Program, Ohio Arts Council, Capacity Building Grants. Same question is always when you're using AI. Is this good? Is it useful to me? Is it actionable? Did I do anything, or did I just do this for the sake of doing it and then just sat on my computer and I did nothing after that? So that's always the question when it comes to anything you do with AI. Is like, we're not just trying to create more work for yourself. Like, your job is to do things that are actually moving projects forward, not just like making more work for yourself or somebody else. All right, now let's see if we can really... Okay, so I wrote a GPT that's on this document, and I'm gonna first say, I'm gonna try this. This is gonna be a lot here. I'm gonna say, I don't feel like typing. We'll say, I'm gonna give you a section of the grant narrative, and first thing I want you to do is just determine which part of the rubric it goes for. This is for a track 1 grant. So I want you to analyze what I wrote and determine what part of the rubric it applies to. Okay, so first I'm just trying to find, like, I'm giving you a random piece of section of the grant, and it's telling me that it aligns with the performance management plan, outputs, and outcomes. Thanks, right? How would I have done that before? I would have been like going back to the grant and like searching through the rubric and be like, oh, this section I think applies to this, right? Now, this is where the real magic happens. Now I'm going to say, your task is to take the grant narrative section that I gave you and score it against the rubric. And here's exactly how I want you to do it. I want you to make sure that the grant narrative section that I gave you directly addresses each section of the grant rubric to make sure I covered all sections they wanted me to cover. Then I want you to grade and give me a score on how many points you think I would get. And I want you to do it in 2 ways. I want you to do it optimistically, assuming that I am doing a good job. And then I want you to be critical and give me a lower score. And then I want you to give me specific reasons why I got the lower score. And then I want you to give me specific suggestions on how to improve it and get a higher score. That's a lot. That's a lot of instructions, right? And that's how I use AI, right? You can give it just like more instructions. Let's see how it does, right? Scoring breakdown, optimistic score, 6 out of 6, right? Good. Tracking and measuring, 2 points, 2 points, 2 points, conclusions. I'm great. Critical score. Oh, now I'm at 3 out of 6, right? Why is the AI telling me both, right? It's just kind of dependent on what I ask it. But here's the real part that's useful, is the specific how to improve the score. Did I give explicit timeframes? Specify when the evaluation activities happen. Quantifiable metrics, provide measurable and then evaluation methods. All right, you want to get one level crazier? Now watch this. Rewrite the section of grant that I gave you, but now implement all of your own suggestions to include that in the grant narrative. So I am telling it to make it better, tell me why it's better, and then using those own suggestions to rewrite the grant to make it better. And here it is. Now, am I going to read this right on screen for you right now? No, I'm not going to make you suffer through that. But that would be the next step, is reading it and determining the same question over and over. Is it good? Is this good? Did it help you? Is it better than the previous one? The answer might be no, but you need to know enough about grant writing and your organization and the funders to even be able to make that determination. But it can give you at least more options to choose from than just like, I'm just sitting down with a blank screen in front of me trying to write a grant narrative. It solves what we call the blank page problem, where it's just much easier to edit something that's good-ish than it is just to like start from scratch and make something excellent. It's easier to go from good to excellent than it is to go from nothing to excellent. So just some best practices, just to kind of wrap up here. This is just general AI best practices. The more clear instructions you give it, the better. You can say, your role is this, your goal is this, your first task is this, a rule I'm setting for is this. Just be clear. Think about AI like the smartest assistant that you've ever had, but it's their first day on the job. Number 2, really read and reflect the outputs. I did not demonstrate that in this because it would be boring for you to watch me read grant narratives to you. But that's the next step. Really read and reflect. How did it do? What's good? What's bad? What needs changed? And then once you do read and reflect, provide feedback. Tell it what you like. Tell it what you want to change. See another draft. Give me another draft. Change these things. Add these things. Remove these things. Control it with your voice. I cannot overstate, I don't even know the right context, of how great this is. It feels like a direct brain to computer interface. I think the future of AI is going to be us talking to it. The reason we haven't been talking to computers for a long time is it just wasn't really available. And I talk different than I type. So if I want to use my typing voice, I got to use my typing fingers. Now with AI, I can use my talking voice and get the typing output by AI translating from voice to email output, right? How you would write an email. I would never write an email the way I would talk, right? That would be like nonsense. Next, you got to know what good looks like. This is the most important one. It's really important that you have some expertise. And so I can say, give me 50 subject lines for this email. Which one's the best one to add? Give me 50 more. Give me 50 more. Now I have 150 subject lines for an email. Our job is often now just to select rather than to create, which is a fundamental shift in like how creativity works. So my number one suggestion for anyone all the time is just start using AI. Just start using it to experiment. There's a learning curve. It's incredibly easy as far as just intuitive, and you just tell it what you want. In fact, you can tell AI to teach you about itself if you want to get a little meta, but just start using it. Experiment with the technology. It's here. It's only going to become more powerful in our society, and so it's important that we just understand what it is, because if you don't, then you won't even know where to set boundaries and what it's doing, and it's all changing really fast. So it's like now is the time to start understanding what this thing is and how it can benefit.